What's good, Top Shotters? It's your boy here, Top Shotter Baba, and welcome to my first Top Shot analysis video. This is something that I've been wanting to do for a while just to help you guys get a better grasp of Top Shot and just to see kind of the thought process and the strategies that I implement when I'm making my Top Shot decisions. And hopefully, you guys are able to pick up some stuff and learn and apply this to your future Top Shot strategies as well. And if you guys enjoy this, then I will definitely be putting out a lot more of this in the future. So let me know what type of stuff, what type of analysis you want me to do, and I'll be sure to get to that as soon as I can. So, for this first episode, I'm going to be explaining why I think the new Seeing Stars challenge, both the KD and LeBron, are insanely valuable and will have a great return on investment. So, with that, let's get started.
So in this video, I'm going to go over some of the main reasons that I'm super bullish on this challenge. Then I'm going to go into some of my analysis and the thought process that went into determining why I think this is such a great challenge, what price points to buy in at, and when to buy each moment. And then after that, I will go into my actual purchases and see how the market responded to the challenge and determine whether or not this was a worthwhile investment. So, the first reason that I'm super bullish on this challenge is because it's the first All Star related anything on the Top Shot platform. And if you're familiar with the collectible industry, you know that usually the first of anything holds a lot more value than anything that comes after it. So I kind of assumed that this would be the case for this challenge. And in the long run, this would have a lot more value than all the next uh, All Star related moments that are released in the next series. So that in itself, I think, will provide these moments, not just the challenge reward, but all the moments needed with a lot of long-term value that will hold outside of just the use for this challenge. And moving on to my next reason, I think that both rewards are just great value in itself. I mean, LeBron is the obvious one. He's the most valuable player on Top Shot. He's just one of the GOATs. His value will never go down. I mean, he's pretty much solidified himself as one of the best players ever. There's never going to be a decline in his value pretty much no matter what. But what's really interesting to me is actually the Kevin Durant moment because one, he doesn't have many moments available on the platform at all just because he was out last year with his Achilles injury. So he only has his run it back moment and then the two common moments from this year, the 7,500 and the 15K. So this reward has the potential to be the second most scarce Kevin Durant moment as based on prior challenge trends, like the Anthony Davis, they were completed at about a 70% rate. So if we see something similar to that happen with Kevin Durant, then we could see it being lower than his uh, both his common S2 moments. And in addition, Kevin Durant didn't play in this All Star game, so many of these other players will likely have two All-Star related moments, as Dapper has said that they plan to release actual moments from the game. But since Kevin Durant didn't play in the game, he won't have any, and that just adds to the scarcity of these Kevin Durant moments. Now, moving on to the next reason that I really like this is the players needed for this challenge. I think having them all be all-stars, I mean, look at these guys. Like we have James Harden, Kyrie, Tatum, Zion. These are just some of the best players in the league. So I think there will always be a lot of demand for these players, and they will continue to hold value outside of the challenge. Because I mean, look at this. This is Zion's first ever All-Star game. Like you can't tell me that this won't be super valuable down the line, especially if he continues to develop the way that a lot of people projected him to in maybe 5 years when he really reaches his prime. And this first All-Star game for him could just skyrocket. You know what I mean? So yeah, being or that these are all really good players, I think they hold value outside of just the utility for the challenge. And this additional value also makes them super liquid. And what I mean by that is that you can sell them really easily. So say I found a better use of my funds, or say I just thought that this challenge wasn't worth it anymore, I could easily just list these moments at whatever the market price was, and they would just be snatched up pretty instantly just because there's a lot of demand for these players, especially the higher end ones like the Zions, like the Stephs. So it kind of gives me a safety net that I know I will be able to exit this fairly easily if I ever realize that my judgment was wrong or that I should go and invest my money somewhere else just because I may generate a higher return over there. And so that brings me to my actual analysis that I performed. So to kind of determine what the price trends would be like for this challenge, I went and looked at some of the previous challenges, especially the Cool Cat 2, just because they had the same circulating count for each of the moments required for the challenge. So the first one I looked at was PJ Washington, as I mentioned, the lowest and least in demand player from this set. And even him, who isn't very popular amongst NBA fans and not very well known, he started out here at about 200, between 200 and 100. I think these low ones right here were just people undercutting as soon as they got theirs. But this up here is a more realistic price point. So it started out in above 100, which is still pretty good for PJ Washington. But then, as we kept going, we saw a huge demand spike here. This was mainly caused by the large influx of new users. And this is super interesting because this is something that I predicted would also happen for this All-Star Challenge, as I figured that we were going to get a lot of new people coming into this platform as the All-Star game went on, as this thing got more publicity. And I also kind of expected that somebody would mention Top Shot during the All-Star game, and that actually did happen. Damian Lillard said that he would like to see his game winner on Top Shot. So I figured that just the publicity and the awareness that All Star Weekend would generate for Top Shot, I figured that it wouldn't be too surprising if we saw this kind of similar, almost parabolic increase in price for these moments, at least initially. And so based on that, I mean, I obviously wouldn't expect this type of huge spike again because that was just, I mean, that was really big even for that time. But even if we cut that in half, I mean, it's still a significant increase. And as you can see here for PJ Washington, I mean, his price jumped all the way up to between like 600 and all the way up to about 900, which is super high for someone like PJ Washington. And so if we could see guys like the lower end, like the Vucevic's, like the Gobert's, if we could see them hit this range, that would be a huge gain considering the prices that these moments were initially going for right after they were released. But as you can see in this trend, it declines after this initial spike and kind of settles at more of a realistic price range for these moments. And this is a more realistic price point as to what I expect these lower end seeing stars moments to settle at the end of the challenge. And even then, I mean, you could have bought those lower end seeing stars moments for under 200. And if they were to settle anywhere near this, anywhere in the 500 to 600 range, that's a great gain. And on top of that, you're getting the rewards. So I think if we were to see that, I would be super happy with whatever price point it reached if it was anywhere near this range. And so just since this was a lot less of a player than the guys in the All-Star game, I figured that this is kind of the absolute low that we could see these seeing stars moments going for at the end of the challenge. And so that gave me confidence in buying up these seeing stars moments at anything kind of in the 200, 300 range even. But especially anything under 200, I was instantly just buying up because I figured that that was extremely undervalued, especially for these high caliber players. So now let's look at what these moments were actually going for. So this is the Vucevic ones. I chose him because he's one of the lower end ones. I mean, the 09 is definitely an outlier, so that's not a factor. But as you can see here, he started out pretty low. All these down here in this pink, these are most of the people that were just undercutting to just dump their moments as quick as possible for a profit. But as you can see here, it slowly dipped and but then it started to come up here as more people started to become aware of the challenge and try to complete it. They started selling for prices around the 200s to upper 100 above 150, which is a pretty good price range, but this is still early on in the challenge and I'm expecting the price to rise significantly, especially as they start to open up signups and people become more aware of the challenge. I think sometimes initially people the like awareness of challenges kind of lags, and so it takes maybe a week or two for people to really determine that this is something that they want to go to, and that's usually when we see a pretty significant spike in demand and prices. Um, but if we move on to the Luca one, we see that he's going for a good amount higher than what that Vucevic was going for. And we see the same kind of similar trend. It starts out um, up here with some of these people just trying to dump off the people trying to flip for a quick profit. And then it drops a little more as more packs were released. I think that's something to definitely keep an eye on, especially if Dapper plans to release packs like this in different times. I think what we've learned from this is that as more packs are released, the price will decline just as the circulating count increases. And so the best time to buy in terms of price is definitely after the last drop because that's when the most supply is out there and that's when they're going to be the most sellers in terms of like the ratio from sellers to buyers. But now, let's go on to see how I actually went about purchasing this. And although I did figure that it would be the lowest at this point after the last drop, I didn't really follow this completely just because um so I bought one after the first drop just to kind of see where if it was a good price point and just in case something unexpected happened and after the next after the next drop or in between that time the prices just skyrocketed. I just figured I might as well just buy one out just to test the market. And so I went and bought up a Damian Lillard and I overpaid compared to what I could have got it at after the drops after, but that's okay. That was kind of an experiment. But after that, I did start buying in a little bit more after each drop because I saw the prices dropping. And a little disclaimer, I would have waited and not bought as many after the third drop and would have waited until the Rising Stars packs dropped. But it was my girlfriend's birthday at that time during the drop. So I knew that I wasn't going to be able to buy up any moments during that time. So I kind of had to snipe them all after the third drop and ended up paying a little more, or kind of a lot more, than I would have had to pay if I had waited until after the Rising Stars drop. So in the future, you guys should definitely wait till the last drop, unless you have some obligations that prevent you from buying from that last drop, because the Top Shot isn't the most important thing. Other things in real life are, but Top Shot is still very important, I think, for all of us. Um, but yeah, so definitely buy after the last drop if you can. But a little side note, it will be very hard to buy during this time. When I was trying to buy during after these other drops, after the third one especially, I kept getting the error and a lot of my transactions didn't actually go through. So that's another thing. You need a lot of time if you're going to try to snipe up these moments, as the quick flippers are just trying to dump their moments right after they open the pack. So, a little strategy that I like to do to increase my odds of getting the moment and reducing the risk of getting a failed transaction is when you go to the actual moment, when you're buying it, click here on Explore All Listings. Okay. And sort by lowest ask ascending. So now you have the prices listed lowest to highest. And instead of buying one of these at the very lowest ask, I will scroll up a little bit and buy something that's a little bit above the lowest ask, but still a good rate price to buy in. Like this one right here is only a little bit more than the lowest ask. So I mean, it's not like I'm really paying a premium. It's $7. I don't really care. And also, this one is a lot lower serial number. So I think in terms of value, this is probably worth more than this one anyway. But yeah, do that because a lot of people, when they go on, they just go and click buy on the lowest ask because that's the easiest to identify. But if you go here, there's usually less people going for it. So you're more likely to have your transaction actually go through. And that just speeds up the process because once you get this, you can go and move on to the next moment that you're trying to snipe instead of going through this process over and over until you get through on the lowest ask, which could take you 5 to 10 tries before you finally snipe up the lowest ask. Whereas if you went here, you could get it in maybe 2 or 3 and then move on and try to get your next moment that you want as part of the challenge. So that's something that I usually try to do, unless there's just a really, really low ask. But usually, if that happens, I'm probably not going to get through anyway. But I just like to try because who wouldn't want to save $200-300 on just someone listing their moment extremely low? So yeah, that's how I kind of go about my purchasing when there's a drop and a lot of people are just going after the lowest ask. But also now with Top Shot implementing their cool off timer, I think that reduces the necessity of the strategy. However, if they were to remove that kind of countdown timer, then this strategy again will be very helpful and useful. So now I want to go over my actual purchases for this. As you can see, I spent a total of about 7,300 on all these moments, out of which about 2,000 was spent on duplicates, 200 spent on packs, for a total of about 5,300 to complete both of the LeBron and KD set. And I'm super happy with that price because I think each of those rewards will definitely go for well over $1,000. And all of these moments needed to complete the challenges will definitely retain a good amount of value, unlike the Cool Cats challenges. And one thing I want to point out is the reason that I bought up duplicates. So I bought up 3 Zions and 2 Lukas. And the reason I did that is because I think these two guys will be the bottlenecks for each of their respective challenges. Zion for the KD and Luka for the LeBron. And so I think as more people become aware of these challenges and as they decide that they want to go for it, these two guys will be increasingly hard to get, as there's a lot of incentive for people to just hold on to these because they're very likable players and popular. So I think the prices for these will go up extremely high as opposed to someone like Vucevic, who people may be more willing to part with as they're just not as popular of a player. But guys like Zion, Luka, Steph, people like that, I think those are the guys that may make this challenge pretty hard for some people to complete. So I definitely think those will go up a lot as people try to complete this challenge. So this last thing that I want to show you guys is this data from Own the Moment. They're super dope. They put out a bunch of data and just different analysis. You can find them on YouTube or Twitter or on Spotify for their podcast. Definitely check them out. Super helpful info. But for this, we're going to look at the Seeing Stars data. As you can see, this is KD and this is LeBron. The price started out pretty high, above 3,500 and 4,000, and then it kept dropping as more packs released. You see it steadily increase a little bit, but then drop back down as the next pack is released. And then we see the market closure for maintenance over here. And then after those cooldown timers were removed, we see that the price continued to rise after that. And this is mainly because we had an imbalance of buyers and sellers. So for the sellers, they only had one, possibly two moments that they could sell just because those are the ones that they got in packs. But the people that were buying needed to buy up all 12 to complete the challenge. So that's why we see a lot more people able to buy or are able to sell as in comparison to the amount that we're able to buy during this time period. But as those restrictions were lifted, we see that start to balance out and the price continue to increase. Now, I know as of recently, the prices have fallen back down a little bit, and they are back down to about where they were at the a little after the initial drop, and I'm okay with that. I think that's just part of the market activity as a whole. It's kind of been down in general, and I think when we get new people in, as they start to open up signups again, I think these will continue to rise back up as this is kind of the shiny new toy that people will be attracted to, and it could be the first challenge that a lot of these newbies come to complete. So with that, that concludes my first video. I hope you guys liked it. I hope you found it helpful. I'm going to try to do a lot more analysis in the future. So let me know in the comments below what type of content you want, what would be helpful, and I'll try to put out that analysis as soon as I can. And as always, be sure to like, subscribe, comment. It's good for the algorithm. I don't know what that means, but all the YouTubers say that shit, so do it. Peace.